Lynn Cullen goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Why, hello, and as beautiful and blue as the sky was on yesterday when I said hello 24 hours ago, it is now metal gray, drear-y, and, in fact, wet. However, I think it's a little bit warmer. And whatever, it's Friday, the 7th of December, a day that shall live in infamy. Jess, do you know why that's a day that shall live in infamy?
Pearl Harbor?
Pearl Harbor, says the young 20-something.
Is that right?
All right. And yay! Well, that was a long time ago, long before you were born. I wasn't even born. That's saying something. Wow. So you do know that.
Can't do math. But...
A day that will live in infamy. It was our, 9/11, although it certainly resulted in a more horrific reality as World War II came to the United States. At any rate, I don't know that I have anything to say about that. Speaking of Japan, who attacked us, Pearl Harbor, I haven't seen the latest news, and if anybody knows, but there was, and I'll check right now very quickly, there was a report of an earthquake in Japan of sizable proportion, not terribly long ago, which is why it was still breaking news. And there were reports that there was concern about a potential tsunami. I am hoping, of course, that will not be true. And I am looking at the Twitter feed, which is as close to being sort of in real time with breaking news as you can be, and I don't see anything more about it, so maybe it'll be okay. Good God. So, relatively good news. The jobs report that always comes out on Friday, there were 146,000 jobs that were added to the mix in this country in November, and that drops the unemployment rate to 7.7%, which is the lowest that the unemployment rate has been in over 4 years. So, I mean, there's no way to look at that, except that that's good. And in fact, all those who are talking about it are suggesting that it is a surprising report. They weren't expecting this kind of a report. They were also expecting that Hurricane Sandy would, in fact, have a negative impact on the report. That does not seem to be the case. So who the heck knows? I sometimes wonder about these people who, the experts who come in and tell us what the numbers mean and what's what. And I wonder how much it's an exact science and how much it's spinning of whatever and supposition and, I don't know, calculation and just a general reading of entrails, I think of how the term expert is thrown around these days with, shows like this, trotting out experts. Well, and we have with us an expert on, and I'm not quite sure if we've ever defined expert. And I think in this day and age, it is quite possible to become a self-invented expert, right? All you got to do is have a good line of patter and have what looks like a good resume, and maybe you've held one. Whatever. If you can talk on it, chances are you can be an expert. Anyway, that's relatively good news today. I found the news today relatively sparse in terms of anything that I want to talk about. I must say, and this is, I know, generally speaking, I got such a pain in my shoulder. Okay, I had to get that out. It's killing me. The thing that I am looking at a lot is the Middle East, and yet I don't talk about it much, and I don't know that you guys talk about it much, but everywhere I look there now, it is scary. Everywhere. But then again, I could have made that statement probably on any day in any year for the past 20 years. I don't know. But I particularly feel that way now simply because things are more unsettled, literally unsettled in so many of the countries of that region. And they sort of bump into each other in their state of discombobulation, and one thing reacts to another. It's really very frightening. You look at Egypt right now. I don't know. That's I find the most surprising. Syria, reports that they've moved their chemical weapons. Well, if they're screwing around with their chemical weapons, that potentially involves us, because I believe I heard Barack Obama say something to that effect, that if they start screwing around with chemical weapons, moving them, looking like they might weaponize them, then it changes my calculation or something to that effect. And I believe there are reports that the Syrians have done that. Anyway, maybe it's better not to look. And if we look here at home, it's, I don't want Jim DeMint leaving the Senate. I say, yee-haw! Good riddance. I don't know if he can make more trouble as head of the Heritage Foundation, but fine and dandy. I don't know. As I continue, I'm sorry I'm being a little blah, 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 as I continue to watch the Republican reaction to Obama's reelection and to what sits on the plate of the federal government right now, especially in regard to, and I'm not even going to say it, the negotiations going on now, apparently mano a mano with Boehner and Obama. It's somewhat disheartening. There's wonderful theater in it all, as I know some of you have told me you appreciate. There was the absurdity, just hilarity of Mitch McConnell yesterday, getting himself so mixed up that he ended up filibustering his own bill. You gotta love it. Whatever. You look at Mitch McConnell. I'm sorry. You do. You look at Mitch McConnell and you look at Harry Reid, and it's not fair to judge people on their, shells, that their flesh. But you look at those two, and I am sorry, they do look like those two old Muppet guys, those two old crusty old Muppet men. I mean, not specifically, but just in their utterances, and McConnell especially looks puppet-like. There's something about the jowliness of his face. He just looks like a total Muppet. Movies coming out that might get our interest. One that was made here and was written about in the business section of the Post-Gazette today, and that is Matt Damon, John Krasinski film Promised Land. You may recall when I had that wonderful opportunity to be part of this making of a video at WQED Studios one evening in which I read along with Matt Damon and John Krasinski and John Krasinski's lovely wife, Emily Blunt, and Frances McDormand. I'm trying to think who the hell else was there. There were a lot of incredible people there. And Krasinski and Blunt and Damon were here because they were making Promised Land. I believe McDormand was making a film here that Woody Harrelson was on, and I don't know what that one is. I don't think McDormand was on Promised Land. Whatever, it's going to be coming out this month, although it won't be here in Pittsburgh until the new year. But it is a movie that uses fracking as its backdrop. And the reason that this piece on Promised Land was not in the entertainment section, where you would expect to be reading about a local movie, it was in the business section because, of course, the natural gas industry is apoplectic about what they see as a movie designed to make them look bad. It was written by John Krasinski and directed by John Krasinski. This is his first at doing either of those things. Matt Damon, as you probably know, is a very politically involved American who happens to be an actor, and often is drawn to productions such as this that have a political bent or a point of view. So the energy. This, by the way, is a Gus. I thought Gus Van Sant is a director, right? Well, then how come they say it's his film if I thought Krasinski directed it?
Maybe he's producing it.
Maybe Van Sant is producing it. But the industry is all in a dither about it. And in some cases, they're making their own films, countering films, as they did with that film Gasland, you may recall, that just went completely viral at the beginning of the of our introduction to Marcellus Shale. And they did answer, the industry did answer that with a movie of its own. Promised Land, though, the trailer, they say, is already on the internet. And I suppose you could go looking for it. I have not. And I don't know. It was filmed in Allegheny County, Westmoreland County, Armstrong County in May, which, yeah, that's about the time we did that video. And I don't know. Krasinski's already under attack. He was on David Letterman's show on Monday discussing fracking, and all hell is broken loose. And so there's just to give you a heads up. So the reason the industry's so upset about it is because, according to one of their spokespeople, they say, for a lot of people going to this movie, wanting to see a Matt Damon movie, this is going to be the first time they've ever even heard about shale gas or fracking. And he says the industry is not thrilled with the way, of course, its impact on the community is presented, because the film shows people who live in the area having to figure out whether or not to sign a lease. I think Damon plays a character who tries to get people to sign leases. I think he plays somebody who works with the industry. And I don't know. So it's coming your way, Promised Land. The Marcellus, excuse me. Hello? Hello, caller.
Hi, may I speak to Lynn, please?
This is she.
Oh, wow, great.
Hi.
Hey, you were talking about the Marcellus Shale there, and I just passed through Canada a couple weeks ago and was reading a newspaper. They're doing some fracking north of Toronto somewhere, and the people were very upset because they don't want anybody fracking at all, yet this American company has to be allowed to frack there because of, I believe it was NAFTA or some international trade agreement, so they're stuck.
Huh. You mean Canada lost its sovereignty to a treaty? That sounds like something that our right wing is always saying could happen. There must be,
and look what Santorum just had his little meeting about this same thing.
Yeah. That's what I was referring to. But
well, they haven't lost the battle yet. It seems to be like a test case, and it looks like the corporations are going to win. So, it's bad news everywhere as usual.
Well, the corporations do usually win, and especially when the corporations we're talking about are the gas industry, oil industry. These are guys that they got more money than anybody else, and they've got more impact and more lobbyists and more heft, and their threats can bring people, to heel. It's hard to beat them. I mean, there was a concerted effort by so many people here to try to slow things down and let us get, this so that it's done right. And those folks, and I was among them, were just mowed over. I mean, mowed over. Because everybody just goes wild about the money that's involved. There's
right,
lots of money.
I work with a lot of guys that live out in the hinterland, and they can't imagine why I would be against it, because all their friends have jobs, and that's okay. Start naming people. All of a sudden they don't have names. Well, they come to work the next day with names, but it's all hearsay and.
Well, no, but the reality is that this fracking stuff has been an economic boon to a lot of people. in Pennsylvania, and even regular folks who've been able to save their farms. You know, a lot of people who had farms who they could barely hang on since they've leased some of their acreage to these companies. They now have the money. And what they're doing is they make that deal, and then they pray that they don't end up with, polluted water and or all the other possible negatives. But there is a lot of money in this for a lot of people, and I have talked to people too, especially in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania, where this has been going on longer, where whole towns have been remade because of the influx of workers, not from the area, but from other places that come in to take these jobs.
Right. I don't know if that was you mentioning a while back that the sales up there in the northern tier at alcohol liquor stores, at the state stores,
skyrocketed. Just exploded. Also, what's exploded is the cost of, for instance, apartments or homes, because there's such a demand now. And a lot of that's hurt a lot of people. So a lot of poorer people there who aren't able to cash in on all this money that's going around end up not being able to afford to live in an apartment that they had lived in for years, because the landlords have been able to jack rents up 2-3 times. Money for some. It's a boom time, but money for some and not for all. I don't know. But it's lost. I mean, it's lost in the short term. Fracking is the thing all over the place. They're debating it in Europe right now. They're debating it in France. I think France just said no to it. But
probably. Maybe they'll, how they ran a bulldozer into McDonald's, maybe they'll run a bulldozer into a drilling rig,
fracking rig. Well, hey, thanks for the call.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Oh yeah, the natural gas industry. When Gasland came out and people were watching that, that's the one where you saw the tap water burst into flame, and a lot of that was shot up in that northeastern area of Pennsylvania that had fracking before we did, and so that was really hurting the PR battle about fracking, and so the natural gas industry really responded to that and came out with their own movie called Truthland, not Gasland, Truthland, and that's been showing all over the place as well. So they're quite able to respond to these things. Well, their response to Promised Land remains to be seen, but that movie, which I'll be interested in seeing. It doesn't sound like a blockbuster movie. It sounds like just one of these earnest, don't mean to put it down, an earnest movie, but certainly the actors in it are top-notch. I mean, those are great actors. So we would hope that John Krasinski also knows how to write. I don't know. That we don't know. Another movie that I want to talk about that's in, is it in town already? The FDR movie? I don't think it is. And it's just so odd to think of Bill Murray as playing Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But that is who plays Franklin Delano Roosevelt, Bill Murray. But then you see one of the publicity stills of him made up as FDR. And lo and behold, if he doesn't look like FDR. And now whenever I look at him, I think, well, sure, why would I have thought he couldn't play FDR? He looks just like him. That movie is getting kind of tepid reviews, although Murray is getting good reviews. He's really a remarkable actor. If you think about how we were first introduced to him, and as a funny guy, as a very funny guy, and a goofy guy, and how as he went into acting, it was goofy parts. And then all of a sudden he stunned us by doing these sort of brooding and cerebral and And lo and behold, the guy is an extremely good actor. To play FDR, that's another sign that this is a guy that just takes risks with his. He's not going to get stuck in a box, and I appreciate the courage of that. But there was a long interview with him that was printed in the New York Times on Sunday. And when I read this thing, I was blown away by Bill Murray. I don't know what my sense of him is. I guess my sense of him would be that he's smart, funny, obviously, complicated. But what I wouldn't have necessarily thought was kind. I don't know why. Kind. And when you read the interview, you're just blown away by how kind this man is. And as I read it, I actually had to stop and thought, now wait a minute, are you not reading this right? I mean, because are you reading, is he joking? Is what looks like kind in print really sarcastic? It was so different than what I thought his voice would be. And here, I'll give you just like a few little examples, and you tell me. The reporter who's doing the questioning actually ended up spending a lot more time with Murray than he had intended, because Murray had been doing another interview, and then he ran over, and then he felt bad that he didn't have as much time with the other guy, so he said, come with me. And so he ends up just being with Murray for some time and really feeling like he's getting the real deal. And at one point, the reporter says to Murray, you know, there's a kind of joy that you seem to bring out of people when they encounter you. Do you notice that? And you know, stop and think about it. You're Bill Murray. You're walking into a hotel lobby, and you have a very recognizable face. People see you, and you know they're overjoyed to see you. And Murray, of course, you know, says that he does, but he seems a little uncomfortable talking about it. And let me get to a part that I think will... okay, wait. Here it is. Then the reporter goes on and says, are there days... Now you tell me, is this... are there days when you wake up and think, nothing good has come to me in a little while, I'd better prime the pump? Now, I have to tell you, my answer to that is no. I do. Is there ever days you wake up and think, nothing good has come to me, I better prime the pump? Personally, my answer to that is you know, an interviewer's nightmare. No, is my answer. Here's Bill Murray's answer. Well, who hasn't? Who hasn't woken up thinking, God, nothing good has come to me in a while, right? So when I feel like I'm stuck, I do something. Not like I'm Mother Teresa or anything, but there's something that's forgotten about in your life all the time. Someone that could use an attaboy or a how you doing out there. It's that sort of scene, that remembering that we die alone. We're born alone. We need each other. It's lonely to really effectively live your life. And anyone you can get help from or give help to, that's part of your obligation. Wow. So he's saying that when he's feeling like nothing good has come for me, that he then reaches out and tries to think of something he can do for somebody else. And I don't get the impression that when he's saying that there's anything sarcastic there. Do you? Another question. So the roles that you did 10, 20, 30 years ago, are you surprised that they still endure the way that they do? Now this sounds more like him. Yeah, I mean, when you did the job, you thought you were just trying to amuse your friends who are all on the job. I'm just trying to make the sound guy laugh, the script supervisor laugh. A movie like Caddyshack, I can walk on a golf course. Yeah, Caddyshack. And then he says, I can walk on a golf course, and some guy will be screaming entire scenes at me and expecting me to do it word for word with him. It's like, fella, I did that once. I improvised that scene. I don't remember how it goes, but I'm charmed by it. I'm not like, hey, knock it off. I mean, it's kind of cool. And here's the one that blew me away. He says when you're in an elevator and people are uncomfortable. Now, I don't know if he's thinking you're in an elevator with me and everybody knows it's me and nobody wants to say anything. I think he's thinking that. He said, you can just say, that's a beautiful scarf. It's just thinking about making someone else feel comfortable. You don't worry about yourself because we're vibrating together. If I can make yours just a little bit groovier, it'll affect me. It comes back, I mean, I just got this sense that here's a guy who, if you were in an elevator with him and he thought there was some tension, his way of releasing tension is to turn outward, say something nice. And then everybody's more comfortable and everything. He strikes me, in other words, I did all this to say, I'm in love. Is he married?
I don't know.
He doesn't seem married, does he? You never see a wife. But you wouldn't. I don't know. We're just the right age. I think we could be good friends, Bill Murray and me.
He was married twice.
He was married twice, but not now. Yeah. There you go. Well, I don't know. So anyway, he's playing FDR, and as I said, the movie's not getting great reviews. Do you get the impression I don't want to talk about anything particularly important today? You are absolutely correct. But another thing... Oh, I see what time it is. Okay. Tell you what, let me take a quick break. If there's something you want to get into, let me know. I ain't no mind reader here. I don't know what you want to talk about. If there's something I'm forgetting, if there's some story in the news that all the other talk jocks are yapping about, what would that be? Oh, something awful. Something like redoing the painted dogs exhibit at the zoo or something. No, thank you. Okay? No, thanks. Anyway, you can call, as you know. You can email, as you know. Right? And I'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
Winter has arrived and it's cold outside, so get to Little's for all your UGG needs. Little's has Uggs for men, women, and children to stay warm with shearling-lined boots, shoes, and slippers. And don't forget to get your hats, gloves, scarves, and more, all available at Little's Shoes. Bring the entire family to view one of the largest in-store UGG shops in the U.S. Little's Shoes, Pittsburgh's largest family shoe store, 5850 Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill.
Pittsburgh City Paper's annual Holiday Guide magazine is available now. Pick up one today for great holiday gift ideas from your favorite local merchants. Plus the Smashing Pumpkins, The Crucible, Olivia Newton-John, and News of the Weird. Pittsburgh City Paper, available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania, and on the web at pghcitypaper.com, and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
This is the sound of a flat-screen television hurled off a building. Now the new bike your kid wants. These are the things you could have, all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Use Energy Star light bulbs and appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Okay. Well, speaking of my reading that interview and then wondering if Bill Murray was being honest or if he was being sarcastic, because you don't... We've gotten to the point where we don't really expect people to be good. We expect people a lot of times just to be jerks, I think. Has it come to that? We don't expect, I think, even people in high places to necessarily do the right thing, because it seems like we've entered a period in which everything seems so cutthroat, so self-centered, and that even being cutthroat and self-centered is expected, and in fact can get you accolades of being a hell of a whatever, I guess executive or something. So I had to go to a doctor yesterday, and the doctor is a young guy. They all are now. The doctor is a young guy, and he says to me, knowing I'm from Wisconsin and knowing I follow sports, he said, "So what do you think of what Alvarez did?" And I'm thinking, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I said, what? Huh?
Is it Pedro?
Yeah, that's what Jess is thinking. Who? What Alvarez? Pedro Alvarez? Yeah, that's what you're thinking. Pedro Alvarez? No, there's a guy named Barry Alvarez. And he is the athletic director of the University of Wisconsin. He used to be their football coach, I believe. Quite sure. So I said, no. Well, what Barry Alvarez did was he apparently has an opening for head football coach of his very good football team, the Wisconsin Badgers. And the guy that was widely believed to be next in line for that position is the guy that just came here to coach the Pitt Panthers. He came from Wisconsin to Pitt, and that is Pitt's football coach, Paul Chryst, who has just completed his first season here, and they're going to a minor bowl game. And to muddy the waters, Chryst is a native of Madison, Wisconsin, has spent his entire personal life, his formative football life there. I mean, this would be a dream job for him, right? Barry Alvarez at Wisconsin had helped Chryst get the job here just last year. And here's what Barry Alvarez said. Well, here's what the reporter says. This is front page Post-Gazette today. The reporter said, and you can hear the awe as he wrote it. University of Wisconsin athletic director Barry Alvarez made a choice this week based on nothing more than what he thought was right. That was worthy of being put right up there at the top of this story says something about what's happened to us. The first lines of this story are something unusual happened yesterday in Madison, Wisconsin. And there it is. He made a decision based on nothing more than what he thought was right. The decision was not made on money, or on prestige. Okay, so I thought it was interesting that this doctor I went to who told me this news was himself gobsmacked. He was blown away. He said, "Do you believe it?" I mean, he's got to want Christ. Christ has to want it. They're just not doing it because it wouldn't be right. Because poor Pitt has not kept a head coach. How many coaches have they been through in the last 2 years? 3, 4? I mean, since Wanstead, there was people have left. That one coach left on him. He said, "I'll be with you forever" or something, and then texted his players on the way out to a cushier job. You know, that's the kind of thing we're used to. And so Alvarez went on to say, "I wouldn't think it would be right for Paul to leave after just 1 year. I wouldn't feel right. And I don't think it would be appropriate for me to hire him back after I had asked someone to help him get that job. So Paul's going to stay at Pitt." Somebody did the right thing. Get the paper boys out on the street corners hawking this. Headline, Wisconsin takes high road. It's sad. It's sad. It's sad that I read my first quick perusal of Bill Murray's interview and I thought, is he pulling this guy's leg? Is he making fun? No, he was just being genuine and honest and showing that he was sort of a kind person. He was a kind person. And Alvarez, I keep thinking maybe he really didn't want Chris for some reason. And he just decided to make it look like he's taking... No. Sometimes people do the right thing. And that's newsworthy. Now, here's the thing that flips me out. When I went to journalism school and I was taught what news is, the classic is, news is not dog bites man. News is man bites dog. It is the unusual. It's not the usual stuff that happens. Who cares? You know, at the intersection of Smithfield and 7th, there were no accidents today. You know, and that's not news. That there was an accident, that's more unusual than there wasn't an accident. So what is unusual constitutes news. But this, and the way it's presented, shows us that what constitutes news now is when someone in a place of high position makes a decision because it's the right thing to do. That's news. That now has entered the area of man bites dog. And that can't be good. Although I'm very happy for this one instance of it. But maybe there's more. But wow. The fact that it is worthy. The fact that I walk into a doctor's office and he's like, "Did you hear?" It's like unbelievable. And then I wake up this morning with this same, the reporter having the same reaction. Did you hear? Something unbelievable has happened. Men with power and with lots of money at stake, and prestige at stake, and status at stake, have behaved well and done the right thing. So, I haven't brought this up, but I'm looking at a headline again that, it's hard for me to believe these things are true, but then you look at the pollster who did it, and the pollster who did it is one of the pollsters who nailed the last election, so they know how to do good polls. They know how to ask questions properly, and then, their polls are believable because they come out with results that are proven over time to have been correct. So when the guys who called the Obama victory turn around and do a poll of Republicans after the fact, asking them why they lost, to come up with half of the Republicans responders say they think that ACORN stole the election. That is, well, it fits into what we've come to know as the Republicans because they believe all kinds of things that aren't true. But this is particularly amazing because it shows the depth of their ignorance. They think ACORN stole this election. ACORN doesn't exist. Because after the last presidential election, 2008, they made a big hoo-ha that ACORN had stolen that election. And then there was a secret tape that they did where they found something that everybody turned on ACORN, and ACORN disappeared. It's gone. It's gone. But 49% of Republican voters nationally say that ACORN stole the election for President Obama. Interestingly, 4 years before, 52% of Republicans voters thought that ACORN had stolen that election. So we do have a good sign that there's somewhere 3% wised up in between that, and so there is this modest decline. But since ACORN does not exist anymore, that ain't saying much. I don't know. If ignorance is bliss, I guess these Republicans must be some happy guys, huh? They must. Hello? There's a caller?
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Yes, this is Clarence from Canonsburg.
Yes, Mr. Clarence.
I want to talk about the 49% who thought or think that ACORN stole the election.
All righty.
Yeah, there's that thing called cognitive dissonance. Is that how you say it?
Oh, yeah, that's how you say it. And they've got to be suffering some really big cases of that.
Yeah, and I remember back in, I guess it was during the 2008 primary election. An older gentleman called who was a lifelong Democrat who said if, Barack Obama won the nomination, he was moving to Canada. He was highly upset. and people were jumping down his throat. And I said, you have to think about when this guy grew up, where, blacks were, basically less than human and incapable of doing anything.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that kind of thought process is what's going on. It's so unbelievable. It's like, walking out the door and seeing a Martian standing there. It's so unbelievable. You don't know what's going on. It kind of freaks you out. And I think that's what's going on. Their brains can't handle the reality.
I agree. I think that's true. And I was thinking the other day, I was watching some newsy show, and there was Barack Obama speaking, and I think Susan Rice was behind him, and then the reporter who started reporting on it was another black woman. And I was thinking, if you're somebody who has that, that old notion that black people are, not quite up to where the white folks are, you must be losing your mind. Everywhere you look, there is a black person in a position a lot higher than you're ever going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it is. Cognitive dissonance is, but it manifests itself as outright terror, which then leads to these kinds of craziness.
Yeah, exactly. And and thank goodness that people die off. Because if you look at the youth, it's completely different. They're like walking around going, "What the heck is wrong with you people?"
That is true.
The perfect example to me is John McCain. He's just freaked out. He's completely lost his mind.
Wonder what
with the Susan Rice thing?
Yeah.
He's completely lost his mind.
Yeah, he has. It makes no sense.
And I think he's still
he's had to back
from
off.
The 2008 loss.
Yeah, he hasn't come to terms with losing to Obama.
To a black guy.
You think?
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. I think that's really, every time I have some pretty bright people like on Facebook and stuff, when I get into these arguments, I always thank goodness for places like Snopes and Fact Check and stuff like that.
Right.
What are you doing? Here it is. But they'll think of some, and there's a I don't know what it's called, but psychologists have found out the more facts you throw at them, the more entrenched they get. They could completely throw out all the facts, and it freaks them out. Yeah, so.
Can you imagine living? I mean, I've had to ask myself, do I live in some kind of a bubble like that? I think, do we all at some point in somewheres in our places in our life for some kind of self-protective reason? I'm sure you would say I don't. I mean, you yourself do not. But I wonder, because I think if you do, you can't recognize it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know what it is for me? Well, first, let me say that me and Tom had a conversation back in Tom Kovacs, where I came up with the little term liberal conservatives, where there's like these liberal ideas that they can't let go. You know what I mean? That, no matter, they will save an owl and let, 25 kids die. That's that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, and I really check myself on this, and it might happen for most guys, it's like, hey, that girl likes me. No matter what they say or what they do, it doesn't matter. They like me.
Yeah, that is a definite guy thing.
Yeah. That I think when you said that, I said, okay, I know there's got to be something, but I'm always checking myself. I always because I know that it exists, so I always make sure that I think, okay, maybe not, probably not.
Well, speaking
but it's still there, huh?
Okay, but speaking as a woman who knows you, I like you, and you're pretty dang likable. So it could be you're right. I don't know if you mean like in that way. But
that's Well, I know what you mean by that. I didn't mean like in that way. Unless you meant like in that way, then that's a whole other thing.
I don't know. Just go away.
Okay. Have a good weekend.
You too,
Thanks.
Clarence.
All
Bye.
right.
Got to get a break in here, I think. We'll be right back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen live after this.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on your favorite local restaurants, museums, and shows. This week only, get discounts up to 60% on tickets to the Nutcracker. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's exclusive e-commerce mall. bergbargains.com.
36 countries, 150 artisan groups, A world of handmade treasures. And one place to discover them all. 10,000 villages. Home decor, jewelry, gifts. All one of a kind. Fashioned one at a time. At 10,000 villages, each item tells a story.
When somebody else takes that beautiful item, I want to carry that beauty to them.
They're gifts that give twice, because 10,000 Villages is a fair trade retailer, providing sustainable income to artisans in developing countries.
Fair trade has been the possibility to have what we have now.
Enriching their lives while bringing exotic elegance into yours. Surprise your senses. Express your style. Experience the new. Step into 10,000 Villages.
I feel very beautiful making these products, and I want all our customers to feel beautiful wearing them.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okay, few of you emailers getting your 2 cents in. Ray writes, Lynn, I think ACORN in the racist lexicon is simply a euphemism for scary, dark-skinned urban people, you're probably right. They don't know from ACORN, but they knew ACORN seemed disproportionately made up of some scary, dark-skinned urban people. It's just, I know I've spoken about it before, but to hear Republicans talk about why they lost and to hear them talk about the urban and the people as if, I don't know, you just get a sense that they don't look at us as legitimate human beings or something. Like we're not. Are they really able to vote? I'm sure a lot of them are thinking, I don't know about this voting stuff because, it allows these people who can't think for themselves because that's what they think to be rousted out of their apartments. Somebody actually, one of them said something like that, rousted out of their apartments and sent off and told how to vote. Wow. Yeah, well, I've often said that Republicans seem to be frightened a lot. Their politics show it. It's why they're so bellicose, so ready to fight. They're sort of bully boy types. So much of what they do have the markings of somebody who has a very dark view of the world, very suspicious of everybody, very untrusting, very frightened. Frightened of people they don't understand, but since they don't mix much, how are they ever going to get to know? Martin Luther King had a great quote, which I used to carry around and now have lost and now can't quite get right. But it has to do with the fact when he was arguing against segregation way back when. And he was talking about how when we segregate, when we don't know each other, then we become ignorant of each other, and ignorance, not knowing is ignorance. Ignorance yields fear, because what you don't know scares you. It's like the monster under the bed. And fear often brings hatred. And so if you follow that, the only answer is you gotta know people. You can't stereotype people if you know them, if you walk in their shoes. It's just such basic stuff. And if you seal yourselves off with only your own kind, socioeconomic, racial, religion, whatever, it's like you're putting yourself in a jail of your own making. You're depriving yourself of so much. And it just blows me away how many people choose ignorance and then embrace the fear that it brings to them. And that's how they live. And so they retreat behind their gated communities. where they talk amongst each other and imagine all these terrible things about these darker-skinned, poor, urban, that they don't recognize as fellow Americans. Chuck writes, a la Paul Chryst, the Pitt football coach, he says that the head coach for the Penn State football team now, Bill O'Brien, he says he's quickly learned that karma exists in the world of college football. I believe that Paul Chryst will now learn the same thing. That putting your faith into something where so many others have lost faith will pay off in the end. Doing the right thing, taking a harder challenge, being true, being steadfast, being faithful. These are all, yes, things that should yield good things down the road. In the time remaining, this is something I've been wanting to... This is the time of year where you get so many things from charities, Please, please, please. And there's so much need out there. A pet peeve of mine has always been when you read about these huge bequests made by very, very rich people and who they choose to give their money to. What blows me away is how often they give it to people who already have so much money. In other words, so they give it to like an Ivy League college with an endowment of billions, whose student body is made up of the children of the rich. If you had all this money, why wouldn't you give it to the people who don't have it? But the reality is that the vast majority of charitable giving does not go to the poor. It doesn't. If what we thought of where we'll give our money is where can it do the most good for those who have the least, then you wouldn't be giving, for instance, Yale University a penny. Yale has a $20 billion endowment. And yet, Yale is the kind of entity that is on the receiving end of these huge charitable gifts. Somebody actually did this, crunched the numbers, and looked just in New York State at individual donations of $1 million or more. So anybody who's giving $1 million is rich. People who gave $1 million or more, where did they give it? Next to none went to any cause aimed at enriching the lives of the less fortunate. Of the top 5 donations, which totaled $190 million, the $190 million just last year, given in New York State, went to Columbia University's Business School, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, one was a $40 million contribution to a corporation for the purpose of building an indoor cycling track. And that $40 million represents about 25 times the amount raised by New Yorkers for Children, an organization that focuses on young people in foster care. Looking at the top 49 gifts on the list of this group that compiled it, of gifts over $1 million, not one went to support social services. Indoor bike tracks? Sure. The Met? Sure. NYU, business schools, Yale? Yeah. It drives me crazy. It drives me nuts. So the haves, I guess the have-nots aren't even on the radar screen. I mean, really, if you had money, why would you give it to others who have money? Why? Somebody answer me. Why? All right, that's it. That's just a constant rant of mine. All right. Hey, I'm off to Philadelphia. I have never, believe it or not, been in Philadelphia.
Really?
I have never. I've driven through it. I've never sat down there and stayed overnight, which I'm going to do. But I'll be on 4802 tonight, WQED, 7:30. And then at 7:30 tomorrow morning, I'll be in Philadelphia. Shoot. I'll tell you all about it when I get back and if I'm still around. Okay? So here's hoping you have a great weekend. And we'll start this up all over again on Monday. Toodaloo.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.